I'm Makatauka and you're watching World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. The United States, Ukraine, and key European partners are gathering in Geneva today for critical talks on U.S. President Donald Trump's plan on ending the war in Ukraine. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has arrived in Geneva and is joined by U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. According to Vietnam's Environment Ministry, floods in Vietnam have claimed 90 lives with 12 people still missing. Torrential rain and landslides have battered south-central provinces since late October. At least 10 people have died and around 20 were injured on Saturday when a tourist bus overturned in Michoacan, Mexico. The bus had left Uruapan for Chalcujahua. Authorities have not yet determined the cause, and investigations are still ongoing. Flooding in northern Malaysia has displaced over 5,000 people so far, including 5,142 evacuees in Kelantan, where days of heavy rain have forced residents into 26 relief centers. Local authorities also reported 528 evacuees in Terengganu as meteorological officials warn of continuous heavy rains and strong winds across the region. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insists that Israel will continue doing everything necessary to stop Hezbollah regrouping in Lebanon and Hamas doing likewise in the Gaza Strip. He further alleges that Hamas has made several attempts to infiltrate beyond the so-called Yellow Line. Prime Minister Mark Carney says Canada will resume trade talks with the United States when it's appropriate. Carney, speaking on the sidelines of the G20 in Johannesburg, noted he does not have a pressing issue to address with President Donald Trump at this time. Cyclone Fina has slammed Australia's Northern Territory with 205 km/h winds, knocking out power for about 19,000 people in Darwin. Local Chief Minister Lafina Chiaro has said that the Category 3 storm caused property damage and flooded roads, but has left no reported injuries, as crews began assessing widespread destruction. Chinese Premier Li Qiang has told Italian President Giorgia Meloni at the G20 summit in South Africa that China welcomes more Italian companies into its market and expects Italy to ensure a fair, non-discriminatory environment for Chinese investment, as both sides signaled a push to strengthen bilateral cooperation. Now we start with Europe. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says the European Union's central role in securing peace for Ukraine must be fully reflected in any future agreement. She stresses that Ukraine must have the freedom and the sovereign right to choose its own destiny without pressure or compromise. Her statement comes as Ukrainian, U.S. and European leaders meet in Geneva for crucial talks on a possible peace plan aimed at ending the long-running conflict. Von der Leyen has reiterated that any durable peace must be based on Ukraine's territorial integrity and international law. She further added that the EU will continue to back Ukraine politically and economically and militarily as diplomatic efforts enter a new phase. Let's listen in.
Neutrality.
We welcome Professor Andrew Latham. He's an international relations expert, joins us live from Minneapolis. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, Professor, as we know, U.S. delegation is currently pursuing peace talks with Ukraine, while the attacks on both sides are ongoing. Do you think anything will come out of these talks that are being held, and would it be realistically feasible to implement those?
Well, I think this is a moment of guarded optimism. It seems that the tone in both Kyiv and Moscow has shifted a little bit, perhaps in Brussels and Washington as well. Everybody seems more inclined to get to a deal. Everybody seems a little more inclined to compromise on their sort of hardline positions. As always with these sorts of talks, anything could happen or might not happen. But I'm guardedly optimistic at this moment. I think exhaustion is setting in across Europe, and that includes Russia. And when that happens, war termination becomes far more likely.
Right. And building on that, while we know that they are still discussing the talks, do you think that who should be the guarantor, if there could be a guarantor for Ukraine?
Well, it won't be NATO as such. It may be NATO partner or member states making bilateral commitments, the Coalition of the Willing, for example. Ultimately, I think the Ukrainians would prefer it if there was an American backstop, to use the language that was being used a while back, American security guarantees. I'm not sure that's in the offing. And that leaves, I guess, the European Union as the only other institution. And that, of course, although Ursula von der Leyen would love it to be more militarily capable, it's not primarily a security and defense organization. The Russians seem to have less concern about Ukraine being associated with the European Union. For them, a red line still is association with NATO, so it won't be a NATO security guarantee, I don't think, anyway.
Well, what do we know so far about what is included in the peace proposal made by U.S.?
Well, the 28-point peace plan had 28 points, but it boiled down to this. Accepting the realities on the ground that Russia now occupies most of the two oblasts that are most important to it, Donetsk and Luhansk.
No.
It's willing to give up some of that territory, as long as it was guaranteed that it could hold on to the remainder of the territory. One of the points was, the language is a bit vague at times, but one of the points was that Ukraine would not become a NATO member. Another point was that the international community would recognize that the two oblasts or provinces, Donetsk and Luhansk, as well as Crimea, would be legally recognized as parts of the Russian Federation. So that would be accepted by the broader international community. Those are the main themes. There are some, obviously 20 or so other points there, but those are the main themes. And really what it comes down to is Ukraine having to accept that it's lost on the battlefield, Russia having to accept that it has not won everything it wanted on the battlefield, and that they can both live for the foreseeable future with the status quo, what's basically what has materialized over the last 4 years on the battlefield.
With that, I would like to thank Professor Andrew Latham for joining us and sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, viewers, let's listen in to von der Leyen on this.
The centrality of the European Union in securing peace for Ukraine must be fully reflected. Ukraine must have the freedom and sovereign right to choose its own destiny. They have chosen a European destiny. It starts with the country's reconstruction, its integration into our single market and our defense industrial base, and ultimately joining our union.
Now we move on to our next news. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has announced he will speak with Russia's President Vladimir Putin on Monday, just days after the U.S. unveiled a controversial plan to end the war in Ukraine. Speaking at the sidelines of the G20 summit, Erdogan has emphasized that Turkey would do everything possible to pave the way for peace. He He has also stated that after his discussions with Putin, he would share the outcomes with European leaders and the US as well as the allies. In the same remarks, Erdogan has expressed his intention to ask Putin to restart the Black Sea grain deal, which is crucial for global food supplies. This is what Turkish president has shared.
Zelenski ile geçen hafta Ankara'da bir görüşme yaptığımı söyledim. Yarın da yine telefonla Sayın Putin'le bir görüşmemiz olacak. Ve bu görüşmelerden sonra bizim malum bir tahıl koridoru gayretimiz vardı. Bu tahıl koridoru gayretimiz bizim aslında barışa giden yolu açmak içindi. Şimdi yarın yapacağımız görüşmelerde Sayın Putin'den bunu yine rica edeceğim. Bu süreci başlatabilirsek çok hayırlı olur diye düşünüyorum. Yine bu kadar insan tabii öldü. Bu ölümleri durdurabilmek için ne gibi adımlar atarız? Bunları kendisiyle müzakere edeceğim ve bu müzakereden sonra da alacağımız neticeyi gerek Avrupalı, gerek Sayın Trump, gerek diğer dostlarla görüşme fırsatını bulacağımı.
Now for this discussion, we welcome back Professor Andrew Latham. He's an international relations expert, joins us live from Minneapolis. Thank you very much, Professor, for staying with us. Now, what do you think, what is Turkey's role and what can Turkey realistically do for the peace between Ukraine and Russia?
Well, as far as motives go, Turkey under Erdogan has really pivoted in the direction of what's sometimes referred to as neo-Ottomanism, referencing the old Ottoman Empire, which extended across a big chunk of Europe and the Middle East and North Africa. He doesn't want to rebuild the empire, but he wants to reestablish Turkey as a dominant regional power, as having a sphere of influence and making it an influential player with one foot in Europe, but the other foot very clearly in the global south. It aspires to be under this neo-Ottoman model, not just a regional great power, but a leader of the global south. And here it's got some competitors, obviously. But those are his motives. He has been successful in the past in terms of negotiating that grain deal, and way back at the beginning of the war, negotiating a ceasefire, which never came about because other European countries, Boris Johnson's UK, for example, stirred the pot up, and it didn't end up actually crystallizing. But he's played the role of helpful fixer on several occasions, is well positioned to play it on this occasion, but as always with these sorts of dynamics, it remains to be seen. He may not succeed, but I think I know what motivates him.
With that, I would like to thank Professor Andrew Latham for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving on to G20, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has highlighted the renewed commitment to multilateral cooperation in the Leaders Declaration from the G20 summit held in Johannesburg, South Africa. Despite objections from the United States, which boycotted the event, Ramaphosa has secured consensus on addressing global challenges like the climate crisis. In his closing remarks, he has emphasized that the declaration showed world leaders' shared goals outweigh their differences. The document underscores the urgency of tackling climate change, boosting renewable energy, and addressing the heavy debt burdens faced by poorer countries.
In the face of significant challenges and demonstrated our ability to come together, even in the times of great difficulty, to pursue a better world. South Africa's presidency marks the first time, as we have said, that the G20 has been hosted and held on African soil.
Now for this discussion, we welcome back Professor Andrew Latham. He's an international relations expert, joins us live from Minneapolis. Thank you very much, Professor, for staying with us. Now, looking back at these 2 days of G20, how significant was this summit in your analysis, and how effective do you think this could be has been without U.S. presence?
Well, in some sense, that's the entire point these days of the G20 for many of the countries that sit around the table. The unipolar moment when the United States got to make all the rules and got to dominate the global political economy, those days are over. And players like Erdogan, but also Ramaphosa as well in South Africa, are keen on making clear that they, members of the Global South, are rule makers, not just rule takers. And so when he says multilateralism, that's a code word. I mean, it has a technical meaning in my field of discipline, but it's a code word that says we, members of the Global South, are going to have an equal say in writing the rules of global governance. Needless to say, that runs contrary to President Trump's views on who should be running the show, and probably rubs a number of other European and Western countries the wrong way as well. But that's the direction in which global politics has been moving for the last decade or so, and the G20 summits really do reflect that logic.
Right. And what do you think about the outcome that has come out that I just shared?
Yeah, well, so far pronouncements, not the words don't matter, they do, but actions now will matter as well, and steps will have to be taken to implement them, creating the institutional frameworks, fleshing out the exact the visions. This will be done at summit levels, just working groups and things like that. So to the extent, too, that G20 has morphed from being an economic forum into a forum which is addressing issues like global climate change, etc. And so, again, we see almost a perfect storm, a perfect reflection or manifestation of this moment, and clearly Donald Trump is not favorably inclined.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Professor Andrew Latham for joining us today and sharing that insight all the way from US. Thank you very much. Now we have a breaking news. Israel's military has announced that it had carried out a precision strike on a senior member of the Iran-backed Hezbollah militant group in Beirut, Lebanon. The Israel Defense Forces have confirmed the operation in a brief statement, describing it as a precise strike targeting a key Hezbollah terrorist. The military did not immediately provide further details about the individual or the operation, but promised more information would follow. This strike marks a continuation of Israel's efforts to target Hezbollah leaders. Now for this discussion, we welcome Ali Muhammad Abushbak. He's a Middle East researcher, joins us live from Cairo. Thank you very much, Ali, for joining us again. Good to see you. Ali, what more can you tell us about how these targeted strikes are affecting Lebanon, and what political calculations could be driving Israel to do this?
Thank you, Suma, for having me. The thing is, Israel up to now, since December 2024, it's violating the ceasefire that signed with Hezbollah during December 2024. And up to now, Israel, it's conducted a several of airstrike and bombardment targeting civilians as well as Hezbollah leader. Hezbollah is very with this agreement, a ceasefire agreement. He's trying to control self-control and not respond. Despite that, Israel still violated such kind of a deal and the ceasefire with the silence of international community. The thing is also that Hezbollah is up to now is suffering from not only internal issues. Also, we should know that one of the significant ally of Hezbollah that collapsed, that Bashar al-Assad's regime, when it's collapsed, Hezbollah deeply impacted. And during the war with Israel and targeting Hassan Nasrallah, the supreme leader of Hezbollah, also got impacted. So like that, Hezbollah is trying to rebuild its ability and power ability to resist Israel. And we should know that about the controversial issue that with regard to lying down the Hezbollah's weapon still is not solved, and about the see a peacekeeper in South Lebanon area still is not doing their job, probably because up to now Israel is taking a place for 7 or 5 point from the South Lebanon. So the things is up to now, the things is on the ground. It's conflict is ongoing, in my opinion, between Hezbollah and Israel. But what is the silence of Hezbollah? Why Hezbollah is not going to take a retaliation from Israel, trying to rebuild its power ability for coming confrontation or coming war with Israel? And if you will go on the ground, ask any Lebanese about the situation, they will confirm you that the war is very soon with Israel, because Israel is continuously bombard Lebanon and South Lebanon. And also with regard such kind of claiming about the war is coming, I guess Hezbollah has no ability to fight with Israel again after this collapse and after the internal issue with the Lebanese community, as I mentioned, with regard to lie down the weapon and about should they transform from resilience or resistance movement or party to a politician party. And this is not in the Hezbollah's idea or notion to resist, to surround it to Israel and give up from their demanding to end Israelis occupation from the Lebanon or South Lebanon.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Ali Muhammad Abushbak for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now we stay in the region. Iran's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baqi has reaffirmed Tehran's stance that it does not interfere in Lebanon's internal affairs, stating that Lebanon's political issues concern the Lebanese themselves. Speaking at a weekly press conference, Baqi has emphasized that Iran remains open to dialogue with the Lebanese government, focusing on strengthening bilateral relations. Let's listen in.
هیچ مداخله‌ای در امور داخلی لبنان نداریم. موضوع لبنان مربوط به خود لبنانی هاست. در این حال همواره آماده تعامل و گفتگو هستیم با دولت لبنان.
The statement comes after Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has extended an invitation to Lebanese Foreign Minister Youssef Raji to visit Tehran. Araghchi has rejected accusations of Iranian interference in Lebanon's politics and reiterated that Iran is committed to fostering dialogue and cooperation. According to Iranian news agencies, Araghchi has affirmed that while Iran does not interfere in Lebanon's internal matters, it welcomes any efforts to improve relations between the two countries. Now for this discussion, we welcome Ali Muhammad Abushbak. He's a Middle East researcher, joins us live from Cairo. Thank you very much, Ali, for staying with us. Now, how do you analyze the relationship of Iran and Lebanon now? And what do we make of this situation?
It's worth mentioning that Usuma, during a period of Masoud Barzakshani, that the current president of Iran, Iran's foreign policy have been changed, and we have seen this during the war in Gaza. And he has a different way and method to handle the foreign issue and the internal external issue, like what happened in Gaza, and also Ansarullah al-Houthi and Hezbollah, unlike his previous Iranian president Hassan Rouhani. So I guess the current president, he has a different policy with regard to interfere in the region, Middle East, I mean here, and also the support of Hezbollah has been deeply impacted, not only after the war with Israel, between Iran and Israel as well, because here after the Israel targeted the Iranian nuclear functions has been changed, a different. So I guess here the thing is Iran is trying to handle the situation with the region, with the Middle East countries, and we have witnessed several of neutral meet and visit with, between Iran and the several of countries like Saudi Arabia and the several of Gulf countries. Especially this country has not good relation with Iran, and they are consider Iran as an enemy for them. I guess also about Lebanese, Iran's government is not interfering in Lebanon's situation, and it's not interfere in Lebanon's situation, as I mentioned. But the thing is here, the tension between Iran and Lebanon have been sparked for a very long time. And if you know that Lebanon is not only about the conflict zone area, it's not only about conflict zone, but also Lebanon has a different of the community is a different from any a part of Arab area. So that's make it more continuously on the focus. But I guess Iran is not interfering because Hezbollah is now, after the collapse of Bashar al-Assad regime, has no allies in the area. And also, it's very clear that if Iran support Hezbollah, it's only for one aims, that resist Israel. It's not only to interfere in Lebanon's policy or in the in the politician life or the daily life of the civilians. If you remember that during the explosive in Lebanon explosive, they also claim that Iran has one of significant responsibility for that, because the weapon of Hezbollah that used to use this port they use it as a place to keep and maintain their weapon in the port. But in my opinion, Iran hasn't any benefit to interfere in Lebanese, because it hasn't any sources. So why Iran should be interfering in Lebanon and should be one of the troublemaker for Lebanese people? There is no doubt the contribution between Iran and Hezbollah, and there is no doubt they are sharing the same mentality or same doctrine, because they are in the same sector, like they are Shia and they have a same sector. So, but this is not a huge, confirmation about the interference of Iran in Lebanon. So in my opinion, the relation between Iran and Lebanon also has been impacted, not only because of Hezbollah, but also Saudi Arabia has interfered in the internal issues for Lebanon, and they are supporting parties to attack Hezbollah and to create such kind of issue and fragmentation in the Lebanese community. Right. So here is, I guess, Iran has no benefit to keep and maintain the allies. And as I mentioned, the current president of Iran has a different policy from the previous presidents. And it's very, 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 one of the, I guess, example when Hassan Nasrallah has been targeted or assassinated, Iran is not, they didn't respond. And also about, I guess, several of things during also when Iranian.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ali, thank you for sharing that insight. We are running out of time for this discussion, but thank you very much for joining us today. That was Ali Muhammad Abushbak, joined us live from Cairo. Thank you very much. Now we move on to Europe. Pope Leo has called for the immediate release of children and staff abducted from a Catholic school in Nigeria. According to reports, gunmen targeted St. Mary's School, Nigeria's northwest region, last Friday, taking students and teachers. The Christian Association of Nigeria has confirmed the attack and said that the government has shut down 47 colleges and amid the recent striking of school attacks. Officials say that a total of 315 have been abducted from St. Mary's School, Speaking on the matter, Pope Leo has expressed deep concern over the abductions and urged the authorities to take proper action. Let's listen in.
Ho appreso con immensa tristezza le notizie dei rapimenti di sacerdoti, fedeli, studenti nella Nigeria e nel Camerun. Sento forte il dolore soprattutto per i tanti ragazzi e ragazze sequestrati e per le loro famiglie angosciate. Rivolgo un accorato appello affinché vengano subito liberati gli ostaggi ed esorto le autorità competenti a prendere decisioni adeguate e tempestive per assicurarne il rilascio.
That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.